Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for coming tonight to Dr. Bob Lorinser's Town Hall for All. My name is Kevin Numerick. I'll be helping with the event tonight and fielding some of the questions. So one of the first things I'd like to do is just go over how that process works. We have started already accepting them through our online form when we started announcing the event, and we did receive a lot of questions, so we will be going over as many of those as possible. If you are live on the event and did not submit one, don't worry. You'll be able to still submit questions through the chat on our forum here through Zoom. And then we will be also taking notes, and I will be making sure that we get to those questions as well. I want to thank you so much for coming tonight. I'm very excited about helping Dr. Bob and working with him on this town hall. I hope you enjoy meeting him as much as I have. He's been a great inspiration to me since I've met him. You can tell he's a very genuine person who's focused on bettering our communities. And I hope that you feel the same after talking with him tonight. And with no further ado, we're going to ask you one more thing, actually. Please go to Dr. Bob's website to donate or volunteer or get engaged in any way that you feel that you can at votedrbob.com. And now I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Bob. Thank you so much.
Andrew. Hello, everybody. Welcome to my first town hall, open to all constituents. And thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight we're virtual, secondary to the surge of COVID cases in the area and the strain that is placed in our healthcare system. I believe it was a prudent decision and probably one that I was involved with since I'm the public health medical director for the county. It's not ideal not being in a person, but this is a live, interactive, virtual town hall. This will be the first of many events of this type, ideally in person, where I could get to know you and you could get to know me. So we'll start off with who I am. My name is Dr. Bob Lorinser. I go by Dr. Bob for short, and I'm running for Congress in the 1st District of Michigan. While I have a long career in public service, this is the first time that I'm seeking to be in elected office. I started my career in social work with severely troubled adolescents committed to institutional care, and later at a VA hospital working with older veterans with psychiatric problems. Then I briefly taught at a university while pursuing my advanced degrees in public health and social work. Then after medical school and residency, I worked with the Indian Health Service in New Mexico, serving the Navajo Nation as a physician for parts of their community. Next, we moved our family to Marquette, Michigan in the 1980s, where I'm a family physician serving many roles over 2.5 decades. And finally, a calling for national service took us overseas, where I served with the State Department as a regional medical officer in Pakistan, South Korea, Afghanistan, Morocco, and North Africa. Finally, we finished our 5th tour of duty in Iraq for the last 2 years. I keep on saying we because my wife Peggy, my best friend and wife for 40 years, and accompanied me the entire time. Most people can't say that they've been to Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, all the hot tour spots, but we did very well, and I'm glad that she was able to join me. We have raised 3 children. Now we're enjoying them as adults along with our grandchildren. I'm currently the public health medical director for Marquette County. As you can see, everything that I have done is out of a sense of duty, and I continue to continue my service to my community, my district, my state, and the nation, hopefully representing you in Congress. To many, I have been and I continue to be Dr. Bob. I've been known by Dr. Bob for the last 30 years. I say things the way I see them. I'm passionate about learning and serving, but make no mistake about it, folks, I am no rookie to life, politics, or service to people. Knowing the person is vital to voters, and that's why I'm going to share with you who I am and what I believe. You need to know what guides my decision making. I call it my bedrock of principles: wisdom, justice, courage, kindness, democratic freedom, and equality under the law. All of these principles have been shared by great statespersons throughout history. I won't match their achievements, but I will be honored to try. I grew up lucky and blessed at the same time in a small Midwest rural community. It wasn't always easy. My parents divorced early. Both parents worked paycheck to paycheck, and sometimes our family had to rely on government aid to make it by. We suffered as a family the consequences of alcoholism, but we worked hard and we were surrounded by love. Many households in our district are similar to mine. Again, we work hard, we play hard, we take care of our families, we help our neighbors, and we celebrate our liberty. Government, I do understand government can't do it all, but federal assistance offered me the opportunity to lead an accomplished life in social work, education, medicine, health administration, international diplomacy, and currently as a public servant in public health. I can't imagine I could have accomplished all of this without this support, especially from these government programs. I hope I have deserved the help that I was given, and I will pay it forward many-fold, and I'll continue to do such as running for Congress. My goal as a member of Congress will be to champion similar, efficient, effective federal programs that provide citizens with more opportunities. Hardworking families of Northern Michigan and the Upper Peninsula deserve no less. Every single one of you deserves to thrive. Tonight, I want to address what I believe is essential, for America to move forward. So I will provide what I support, and not just angry opposition without proposing any alternatives. So let's start with the elephant in the room, COVID. At this stage in the pandemic, we should be having we should have a new way of talking about COVID, and we should be asking ourselves, what is the national goal of COVID in 2022? We have faced this pandemic for over 2 years. We have highly effective and safe vaccines that are readily available. The situation has changed multiple times. Much more is known, but much remains unknown. So what are our goals? Is it to prevent cases, severe illness and death, healthcare system collapse? Now, I have participated as the local medical director in these decisions locally in our state of Michigan and nationally. I have, at times, I have agreed and disagreed with approaches. On occasion, I've disagreed with our governor, I've disagreed with the state public health officials and CDC. But I've done it with respect and offered alternative solutions. At other times, I have congratulated them with all their efforts and the programs that they have done to keep us safe. Others have disagreed with me, and I've responded with information that led to my decisions politely and respectively. To regain the public's trust, the nation needs well-delineated, simple, easily understood goals based on science, the law, and ethics. These goals, and the policies and programs that stems from such need, again, to be practical, acceptable, and palatable. The decision-making goal setting are not only for public health officials, it is for all of us. Jobs, the economy, education, mental health, returning to normalcy, and the desire to prevent loss of life or the collapse of our healthcare system are all critical. But so is your freedoms, protecting the safety of others, and especially for those that view it differently than ourselves. So what are our goals? Currently, I believe they should be the following. Prevent death and serious illness. Prevent the collapse of our healthcare, our medical care system, and maintain as best as possible our way of life and our vital infrastructure. Soon, folks, I think we'll be transitioning learning how to live with COVID. I see it fast approaching. There's changes each and every day. COVID, I believe, will join other respiratory illnesses, and our approach will be quite different than it is today. As we learn more, we all need to adjust and change, and we will. Together, we'll make it through this. Together, we will all benefit and suffer less. So we'll be guided by the science, the law, and our principles. This is how I would address issues as your next representative. So switching on from COVID, let me pivot to another important topic. How close are we coming to losing our democracy? The national surveys and polls are frightening to myself, and it should be frightening to all of us. 1 in 3 Americans say they believe violence against the government at times can be justified. 40% of politically active members say that the other party is evil. 60% of those people believe that the other party is a threat. And just hearing the words of another civil war is on the horizon is definitely a sign of a national failure. Reading articles from our retired military leaders worried that the next coup will come from within are profoundly disturbing concerns about whether our military themselves will be part of it. I have to ask ourselves, what happened? You know, we are not each other enemies. We are all Americans wishing for better jobs, a more robust economy, and a better life for our families. So, plain and simple, folks, we need to stop this. We need to work together, not separately. We need to agree on the goals and then civilly debate, finding the right policies and programs to make it a reality. That's why you elect senators and representatives. That's what they should do. Let's show the nation and the world how democracy works. I believe it is time to end angry opposition. It seems all too common in Congress today to be angry, to be opposed to whatever the other party believes, even if we advocated for it previously ourselves. Angry opposition needs to be replaced by calm, goal-directed collaboration and cooperation. January 6th was a threat to our democracy, and my opponent was part of it and still is. Jack Bergman will not preserve your vote if he disagrees with how you voted. I will, I must, and I would be glad to do such. I will uphold our Constitution. I will support the rule of law. This issue alone should be sufficient to win this election. Our current representative tried to take away your vote. He still does not recognize Biden as our duly elected president from a free and fair elections. He supported the January 6th insurrection and still does. This, along with other threats, jeopardizes our democracy. We need to protect our most fundamental democratic institution, free and fair elections, prevent political oversight of the electoral process. We need to end gerrymandering. We need to end voter exclusion. We need to address campaign reform that requires a massive amount of money to be elected, to prevent our democracy from turning into a government by the wealthy and for the wealthy. We need to return winning election by persuading the voters that you are the better candidate with better policies, with better principles that are based on fact and not fiction. Our survival of democracy will depend on ending the political polarization, ending the party tribalism. We need to eliminate a conflict of who belongs to what political party or what community, especially by race, income, and educational status. We need to decrease economic inequality, and yes, we need to reduce excessive executive power. We must work hard to maintain and nurture the freedoms that democracy gives us. It isn't a gift, but a precious resource that demands our attention. Bipartisan support to protect the results of our next election is vital and immediately necessary. Without mutually agreeing to national standards for election security, as requested by the Republicans, and by voter rights, as requested by the Democrats, we will all lose regardless of who's declared the winner. Why? Each party will declare the election fraudulent for different reasons. Each party will say the election was not lost, but stolen. We can and should work together. It is time to pass bipartisan voter rights and election security laws. When it comes to health care, now I'm going to transition to other topics. So let's transition to health care, a system that I actually know quite well. I support universal health coverage, which means that all people have access to health services they need when and where they need them without financial hardship. Universal health care means and includes what? Accessible, high quality health services, receiving the health services they need without suffering financial hardship, skilled health workers, strong people-centered primary health care, rooted in communities they serve. We need the full spectrum of essential quality health services, from health promotion to prevention, treatment, rehabilitation, palliative care across the whole lifespan. We need equal treatment for all health issues, including substance use disorders and behavioral and mental illnesses. We need to protect people from the financial consequences of paying for health services out of their own pockets to reduce the risk of being pushed into poverty because of unexpected illness requires them to use their life savings, sell assets, or to borrow. No one should destroy their future from having a medical problem. What this isn't, universal health care is not socialized medicine. They have nothing in common. I support the VA. I support Medicare and Medicaid. I also support privately operated, employer-directed medical care like the Great Mayo Clinic and the Cleveland Clinics. Do I think medical care should be directed by the government? Absolutely not. Health care isn't free, but it is a necessary expense worthy of our taxes. I support affordable, accessible, quality health care paid for with tax dollars earned by hard-working families. Let's move on to another very important topic, the environment. We live in one of the most beautiful areas of our nation. You know, currently we're in the true winter wonderland where you could go skiing, snowshoeing, snowmobiling, ice skating. We also have wonderful sandy beaches, and although too short and sometimes too buggy, our summers attract much of the country to this great area. Isn't autumn absolutely perfect? But I guess I have to talk to Mother Nature because I'm not too keen on April. It is our obligation as a community to preserve it and to attend its needs. As our Native American colleagues tell us, our decisions should result in a sustainable world 7 generations in the future. We need policies at the federal, state, and local levels that protect the environment and conserve our natural resources. We need policies that not only do this, but they sustain the economic growth and increase employment while giving affordable energy and respecting businesses and individual rights. Global temperature increases pose immediate threats to our lives. As global warming worsens, human health, livelihood, food security, water supply, and economic growth will all be endangered. America can address the global climate threats of greenhouse gases while creating stable, well-paying jobs that boost our economy. It is not one or the other, but it is a win-win. So I support 100% clean energy economy and reaching net zero emissions, again, no later than 2050. I support renewable carbon-free sources of energy. We should have a carbon tax that places a monetary price on the real cost imposed on our economy by greenhouse gas emissions. We need to make America the world's leader in clean energy research, investment, commercialization, manufacturing, and exports. We need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from all sources: household activities, factories, agriculture, and transportation. We need to recognize the United States accounts for only 15% of global emissions. Therefore, I support enforceable international agreements to reduce emissions and a worldwide ban on fossil fuel subsidies. Climate change has immediate consequences if we do not take bold action. I advocate for a world for our children's children. I'm a proud father of 3 and a grandfather. I strive to build a better future for them, and I will continue to advocate for sound environmental policies to ensure that the natural beauty of this land is preserved. Switching to another important area, I'd like to advocate for innovative approaches to expand higher education access and reduce its costs, because the current way we implement and practice secondary education is not sustainable. We need to refocus on new strategies like how, when, and where we learn. The purpose of a college degree or vocational certificate is to demonstrate a person's knowledge, skill, and motivation to be a talented worker and an informed citizen. Students can show these attributes outside of the classroom. There are alternatives to attending college, university, and vocational schools for your entire degree. There are alternatives to in-person learning. We need to reimagine possibilities of unconventional learning. Students can learn, obtain knowledge and skills outside of the credit hours of the classroom. Life experiences are just as critical. We need to allow learning outside of the four walls of the higher education institution, in our trusted communities and our local businesses. We need to incorporate current technology to increase access to excellent teachers nationally or internationally. So after you do your training and education, then what? We want a good job. So let me tell you what I believe the research says what a good job is. A livable wage. It has about 5 components. A livable wage, to be treated fairly, and to have a promising future, to feel psychologically safe, and a sense of purpose. I believe if employers, businesses, recognize what is a good job, if they address these 5 issues, they will have no problem finding and retaining workers. And we can address this more on some of the question and answers. In 2017, my opponent cut corporate taxes, increased in the national debt by $1.5 to $1.9 trillion. He opposes measures to reduce childhood poverty without offering alternatives, but I would. I don't know what he's thinking. So I'd like to next discuss a little bit about the child tax credit, which I believe is very poorly understood. The child tax credit's aim is to help working families offset the cost of raising children. Legislatures need to ask how we support our families after the latest child tax credits expires. How would we address childhood poverty? We got to remember the child tax credit was initiated by the Republicans in 1997 and has been amended multiple times, including the largest increase, except for this year, by President Trump in 2017. I support the child tax credit. I support reducing childhood poverty. I support American families. I will advocate on your behalf to ensure that there is some relief for the hardworking American families. Folks, if there's a better way than the child tax credit, to address supporting American families, to support, alleviating childhood poverty by 50%, I'm all in. I'm all in. But we need to move together forward. It is not my way. It is not your way. It should be our way. I want to be Michigan's next 1st District representative to participate in this democracy. I will work hard to represent all of us, including our American families, to address problems, to move forward. Another very difficult area that people ask me about, women's right to choose. This debate has divided America more than any other issue. But I believe we should all be pro-choice and pro-life. This is a highly emotional debate with a wide range of issues involving, some of those issues are individual health care rights, privacy rights, freedom of religious expression, and the appropriate distribution of public resources. No one anticipates or wants to be in a position to decide to have an abortion. Make it clear, no one is pro-abortion. Roe versus Wade did not provide an absolute right for abortions, but it did provide a fundamental right to privacy that protects a woman's right to choose. I support this Supreme Court decision. I believe we must and we should protect Roe versus Wade. Promoting life means offering everyone a fighting chance, after birth, with universal child care, universal health care, funding and improving our foster and adoption programs. I'm a proud grandfather of 3 foster children, and my son Peter and his wife Rachel are blessed, to provide their love and support to those in need. Promoting choice means respecting a woman's constitutional right to choose, their right to privacy. We must honor their individual freedoms without government interference into their day-by-day life. In ending in this area, I think we all need to be pro-life. We all need to be pro-choice, and do what we can to increase support and options for women faced with the personal and challenging decision of an abortion. So not being fearful of addressing very important issues, let's move on to another issue that has wedged us Americans apart, about topics such as the Second Amendment. I support the Second Amendment while trying to address gun violence. There should be absolutely no issue among all of us Americans in this regard. Support the Second Amendment, but address gun violence. Let me say again, we need to reframe the conversation. Gun violence is the issue. It is not gun control. Gun violence has claimed nearly 20,000 lives, and suicides by gun violence, has added another about 25,000 lives. Nearly 1/3 of the world's mass shootings occur in the United States, although mass shootings only account for a tiny fraction of gun-related violence. Most gun-related deaths are suicides, as I said before, but urban crime, gang activity, domestic violence, police shootings, accidental deaths make up the majority of non-self-inflicted, gun-related deaths. The gun control controversy centers on the debate that any more restrictions around gun manufacturing, sales, or ownership is unconstitutional, or they disagree that stricter rules would lower the occurrence of gun violence. Again, let's first define the problem. It is gun violence. Then let's use science, the law, and our principles to guide us forward and to solve another public health crisis. What else do I support that bonds me to members of the 1st District? Public education. I believe in extending public education to pre, 3, and 4, and for 2 years after high school in a trade school, apprenticeship, or college is worthy of raising taxes on corporations or individuals making over $400,000 annually. I advocate for livable wages for many Yoopers and Michiganders who work as hard, if not more, than many of us who are paid much more. I do not and I will not sow falsehood or deceive the voter. To get the economy back to normal, we must reduce COVID's pandemic damage, and most should get vaccinated. My opponent ridiculed my statement that I support the vaccines to help end the pandemic's effect on our economy, although he does state he encourages vaccinations, and I appreciate that. Another issue is affordable and accessible broadband is essential for us in northern Michigan. It will help our economy thrive. We must address debilitating costs of child care for northern Michigan and UP families, for which he offers no alternative. Young people say our democracy is failing. We need to re-engage the youth. We must give them some hope. I support a government that is efficient and effective, a government that allows as much individual freedom as possible, that allows us to live and work together. Government should not be involved in the everyday activities of anyone's life. What does my opponent believe and do? I see endless rhetoric, name-calling, but little substance. As I have often said, I will run on a bedrock of principles. Again, worthwhile repeating: wisdom, justice, kindness, democratic freedom, and equality under the law. He runs on intimidation, division, and meaningless rhetoric. He offers no meaningful legislation to address national problems, nor compromises, collaborates, to move our nation forward. Just like our Democratic, Representative Debbie Dingell and Representative Fred Upton from Michigan, who went on national TV. They called on Americans to get back to remembering how much we have in common and to work together. I will follow my Republican, Democratic, leaders in the state of Michigan and do such. We need to overcome the toxic environment in Washington. We must remove our fears and angers and replace them with hope, calmness, and confidence. We must compromise and collaborate with civility, dignity, and respectful debate. It is my duty, to run for Congress because our current representative is not working for the people, with the people. A congressperson has 4 assumed duties and responsibilities. I would ask each and every one of us to please evaluate your current representative on how well they are doing in each of those 4 areas. How are they doing on legislative and policy work? Are they helping their constituents solve their problems? Especially, are they educating and informing members about pending legislation? Do they represent and advocate for the needs and the interests of the district? I share citizens' frustrations that our representative has not accomplished the duties and responsibilities for which he was sworn to uphold. That's not leadership. It doesn't matter if you're progressive or conservative. You deserve someone who will listen to you, who will respect you, and strive to represent everyone to the best of their abilities. Please count on me to legislate, serve, communicate, and represent, people of the 1st District at a standard that we haven't seen for years. We do and have a serious campaign to win this election. We will be positive, but we also will hold our current representative accountable for his actions or inactions, especially how we started this conversation with voter rights, with involvement in insurrection, and threatening our democracy. We will offer a voter a choice, and we'll offer voters a choice, and policy opinions that he doesn't have. We will attack folks, but we will do it with substance and not with rhetoric or name calling. We will address his false ideology of freedom, showing voters that his action jeopardized it by not supporting our democracy or voter rights. We will not go to the trenches and gutters like he does with the name calling, but we will take the battle to him directly and offensively face to face. In simple, ordinary day language, we will highlight why he is not the representative we deserve, and we're only starting. I understand I would be one of only 435 in Congress. I don't have superhuman powers, but I have principles. I have a vision. My vision and my principles are shared among those in the 1st District. Please get to know me, and I will get to know you. I support improving our economy, and good jobs, addressing the affordable housing issues, addressing accessible and affordable post-secondary education. I support promoting the future of our children, supporting your health and not just your medical care, preserving our environment. Especially, I support protecting and defending our democracy and freedom. Now, I guess I'd be done with my town hall speech, and I'd be glad to take questions from all of you, and I believe Kevin's going to help us with some of this moderation.
I am. Thank you so much, Dr. Bob. That was great. We have a lot of questions coming in. I'm trying to keep up, but we'll go ahead and get started with one that I've seen a few times already, and that is inquiring how you would handle line 5 and what repercussions on the Great Lakes that might have.
Yeah. Thanks for starting off with the easy question. I appreciate that. All right, but it is an excellent question, and let me take maybe a little extra time how I do this, because this is a tough issue. I will address line 5 like I would do any problem that's given to me, and let me highlight how I would do this. First, you got to define what the problem is. Line 5 is not the problem by itself. Define what the problem is, then obtain the facts, then look at entertain solutions, then discuss and debate, and sometimes you have to return to redefining what the problem is. Then finally, the last step, you have to make a decision and move forward. So line 5, what is really the issues? Line 5, I think, has really 4 important issues to it. The rule of law. The rule of law, right now we know it's in the courts, because of international treaties with Canada and the treaties that we've had in the 1800s with members of our First Nation. Rule of law issues. The second issue is environment. Third issue is energy. Then you have economics. So you have to obtain the facts. And there seems to be some disagreement about some of these facts. Will energy prices soar if we close Line 5? Is Line 5 a real threat to our environment? So after several days, days of research, I've been on the campaign trail for a couple of months now, and after some days of research and discussion with others and talking to experts, here's what I come up with. The rule of law needs to be addressed, and it's currently in the courts. We need to be a nation of a rule of laws, a very important topic. I have no control over this. The second, I believe the facts support the following. There are energy alternatives for the UP in Michigan that are not dependent on Line 5 traversing our Great Lakes. I believe the economic impact to jobs is minimal to other states and to Canada, since there are different routes of oil to reach the refinery downstate. I believe the facts state that America needs to transition from fossil fuels to clean energy sources. Also, I think there's a realistic threat to our environment from Line 5. So then, if you believe those facts, the possible solutions seem to be down to two: tunneling or decommissioning Line 5. Tunneling, from my understanding, needs to be accepted as environmentally safe, for it to be considered. And again, I'm not sure if the experts have verified this. So yes, currently, depending on the rule of law, I support the decommissioning of Line 5. Your representative as a citizen of Michigan, can have an opinion, but our congressperson as a national leader should support the goals of our nation, which are the respect of international treaties, the respect of law, protecting and safeguarding our environment, and helping us transition to cleaner energies. If any of the facts are in error, any of them, it would change my support. If alternative energy sources are not available at the same cost for Michiganders, then I don't support the closure of Line 5. If the economic impact on others is present, this also needs to be addressed. So that's my answer to the Line 5. I hope that I explained it well.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. We do have some more questions. The next one is actually about inflation. So, what caused the big jump in inflation, and what will the Build Back Better bill do to inflation?
Thought we were getting to easier questions. All right, the cause for inflation. Let's go. The pandemic, the COVID pandemic, resulted in an international collapse. It wasn't just the United States. Whoever said the United States closed down and no one else did, that's not true. The COVID pandemic resulted in a collapse of the economy and supply chain shortages worldwide, and that still exists. A second component, the United States government stimulus with trillions of dollars given out throughout the nation resulted in a buying power. It was meant to sustain lives, right? While people were laid off, while unemployment was so high. But that trillions of dollars that they were given in support, they had nowhere to spend it. Very little outside the basic necessity of the life, they couldn't spend it. Then the vaccine arrives, changes things. And we had an unexpected, rapid recovery of Americans resuming spending with pent-up money, pent-up needs, chasing limited supplies because of the supply chain shortage worldwide and domestically. And as everybody knows, we're not back to normal. So the result, as you said, inflation, more money chasing scarce items. The result, misery for the consumer. Prices for food and energy are set on worldwide markets, and that's probably some of the worst effects that we have. How long will it last? As long as the companies and the supply chain struggles, as long as the companies have supply chain struggles to keep up with demand, we will have inflation concerns. I hope it doesn't last long, folks, but a year or more may be possible. What can be done? Fix the supply chain globally, end the COVID pandemic as fast as you can, and let the feds address monetary policy, interest rates of that. We need to get the single most effective measure we can take locally to get the economy back to normal is to decrease the damages from COVID. Yes, by getting vaccinated. Now, the Build Back Better will negatively impact inflation. I believe many economists think that the inflationary impact of the bill would be small and brief. You know, it probably, one figure that I heard about, it would increase demand by about $600–700 billion, but that's over 10 years. And that over that 10-year period of time, the United States spends $200 trillion. So I think the impact on inflation could be there. It may be small. But, you know, anytime a government increases a government spending, it should increase demand and therefore increase inflation. I believe the impact will be small. I guess I don't believe, the economists from both sides are believing that. But the bill also has some provisions that would counter the inflation. What would counter it? Investments in infrastructure that would bring supplies into closer alignment with demand. Child care subsidies, which could push people back into the labor force, and in doing so would increase our supply of goods and services, and improvements in worker productivity, you know, by the infrastructure. So yes, I believe the Build Back Better plan will be, the end result, have very little impact on inflation, and probably will help in the long run. Let's make them easier now.
All right, yeah, next one. So there is a little bit about the Build Back Better plan, but I think you just addressed that. So I'm going to move down to the next question that we had submitted. How can Congress help to alleviate the nationwide shortage of healthcare workers, especially in mental health fields?
Give me a moment. Okay, let's do it the same way we did line 5, right? Let's do it the same way we do line 5. What is the issue? What is the problem? Is it really, I know the questioner is saying, how do we get the healthcare workers back? Is it just really healthcare workers? What about teachers? What about service workers? I bet there's many more, you know, that we have a shortage of right now. So what's the problem? Why are they leaving the profession? Because they're no longer good jobs. I think that's the answer. They're no longer good jobs, or they could find a better job, or they no longer need a job. But let's address what a good job is again. You know, I believe COVID has made things worse, but it wasn't the cause of this. All jobs need to be good jobs. So what defines a good job? It is more than a paycheck. Fair pay is necessary, but not sufficient to have a good job. But what are the other components of a good job? If you look at the data from this one, I think people say they have to have 4 other ingredients of a good job, if I can remember correctly now here. They needed to feel like they're treated fairly. They need to look like they have a promising future in their job. They need to feel psychologically safe. They need a sense of purpose. So let's go to the healthcare workers. Why are they leaving? I already said it's because they don't have a good job, or they have a better job, or they're financially stable enough that they just quit. So what happened? Their sense of purpose for a healthcare person is still there. What changed? Are they feeling psychologically safe? Maybe not. If you've been a healthcare worker during this pandemic, being yelled at, screamed at, spat at, maybe it's no longer psychologically safe from them. Maybe they feel like they're not treated fairly, fairly anymore. I think most physicians believe they have a promising future. But does a nurse feel like they have a nurse or a mental health counselor, a social worker? Do they believe they're treated fairly? So let's get back to the issues. Why do people leave jobs? Because it's not a good job anymore. So what's the problem? Fix what a good job means. When you analyze job shortages, I think you will find deficits in one or more of each of these categories. And once you find them, fix them. And it may not be for Congress to fix. This is for businesses to fix. We're on a roll. Keep it up.
We are. Thank you very much. Next question that was submitted, and we will be getting to the questions submitted in the chat as well. We're just going through a few of these still, and then I've been, again, trying to keep up as much as I can, and we'll start answering those questions as well. Some of them I know have already been answered. I just wanted to give you an update on that. So we have one more question that was submitted to the forum right now. Well, earlier, you state, excuse me, that you are for a social safety net that assists and supports but does not enable. Please define enable in this context. What is an example of a social safety net that does enable?
Yeah. So maybe I need to apologize because I used enable as a clinician. You remember my background. Enabling, I used in the negative consequences. That's a great question. So let me maybe go back and to reframe and to rephrase what I wanted to end up saying. Everyone calls probably the Build Back Better plan the social safety net. We should call it the social safety trampoline. For me, it means when you're in a net. When you're in a net, you're caught in a net, right? You can't get out of the net. When our social programs need to be a social safety trampoline. That means when you hit, if you need unemployment assistance, housing assistance, farming advice, say small business advice, that you hit the trampoline and we bounce you up high, right? We don't want to keep you in the net. So social safety trampoline should lead to independence. What I meant by enabling is becoming dependent. Dependent on the social program. You're caught in the net. When you're caught in the net, you can't get out of the net. You can't do with what you should be able to do, then we're enabling that person. So if you're dependent on the government and you can't get out of the net, we are enabling you. The government programs that intend to help, but in fact, they may extend, your dependency. That's what I meant by aiding and supporting means helping people who cannot do it for themselves. Enabling is a bad term, meaning doing things for people who can and should do it, for themselves. So I hope that helped a little bit of what I mean by enabling.
All right. Thank you very much again. Great answers. Next question is, what concrete steps will you take to prevent partisan voting restrictions?
Okay. Let's look what the Congress is facing right now. And, again, the Freedom to Vote Act bill that's in Congress, hundreds, if not thousands of pages. So I don't have all the details. I don't have all the details of this, but what would I support? I support big parts of this Freedom to Vote Act bill. The bill addresses voter registration and voter access, election integrity and security, redistricting and campaign financing. Expanding voter registration makes sense to me. Automatic same-day registration makes sense to me. Voting access, voting by mail and early voting. Yep, I like that. It also eliminates, I believe, removing voters automatically from the voter rolls because of addresses and such. Probably shouldn't be so. Establishing Election Day as a federal holiday to support people to vote. Very, very reasonable. Great idea. It also addresses election security. Inquiring, I think it requires states to conduct post-election audits, for their federal elections. Holding people accountable, I'm all in. It outlines stuff that I'm interested in, outlines criteria for congressional redistricting and gerrymandering. What did Michigan do well? They had an independent commission that we lost one congressional seat. This independent commission decided what is the best way to make it fair. Not pro-Republican, pro-Democrat, but fair. Other steps in this Freedom to Vote Act, I think it makes criminal offenses to hinder, to interfere, or to prevent another person registering to vote or helping someone register to vote. That should never be a crime. And the one that I'm really excited about, but I believe it doesn't start until 2028, is campaign financing. Reestablishing an alternative campaign system for certain federal elections to keep PAC money, big money out of the race. It would help people, for example, I think it's 6-to-1 support. That means like a campaign like mine, we raised a fair amount of money from individual small donors. They would say that if you had $50,000 from 1,000 different people, we will match you 6-to-1. It would take big money away from the campaign. It would give the campaign elections by the people, for the people back. It would allow us not to be a democracy of the rich and for the rich. Very much support much of this. The devil is always in the detail, and I think, again, this bill is 600 pages plus long, so you'd have to know more details, but that's the most I know right now.
Okay, thank you. We have another question. This deals with immigration and voting rights, and just please discuss your views on that.
I think we already addressed the voting rights, so I'm not going to address voting rights at all.
Anymore? Okay.
Yeah. Let's do it. I think I covered that well. So let's go to immigration. Immigration. I think everybody agrees there's problems. There's been problems for decades on immigration. So I want to share with people what I think, what I believe in immigration. I support immigration based on principles. See, I always go back to principles. If you follow me on the principles, then you'll follow how I will eventually vote once the details come out. So immigration should be based on principles. Unification of families. I think that's vital, right? Immigration should support the reunification of families. They should admit immigrants whose skills are valuable to the U.S. economy. We need to protect refugees and in some ways help and support diversity. I support immigration that is responsive to the United States needs while improving, meeting most of those needs locally within the United States. If we can't meet the needs of our nation locally, I would hope that the courage of the people that would want to immigrate to our country would help us. I support asylum and refugee programs. We need to show the nation, we need to show the world that Americans care for the unfortunate. We need to demonstrate our leadership, our humanitarian aid. I support a pathway for citizenship for the undocumented immigrants and others that have been residing in this country sometime for decades. I believe that a successful immigration policy will increase our economic growth, will solve labor, say market labor problems, skilled job shortages. It will provide, skilled workers to improve our way of life in the United States when we can't do it internally. The net benefit, to the government in revenues is positive. Whoever says that these refugees, these immigrants cost our nation, no, they benefit our nation. If anything, they're net revenue positive. A well-designed policy should mitigate any potential cons of this. We need to, it won't lead to a fall in real wages. It won't take Native American workers' jobs. It won't result in overpopulation. It won't cause social disharmony. It won't put a stress on our public services like health or education. Let's look at the data. To me, it should be a win-win. It should be a win-win.
I agree.
Thank you. It's hard not listening to the public out there, in terms of what we're doing, but I'm trying my best, folks.
All right, so we got one from a college student at CMU.
Central Michigan University.
Yes. Who calls this district home? What will you do to relieve the soaring prices of tuition and room and board at universities and colleges in the United States?
Okay. let's, well, we discussed, remember I talked about innovating education. So let's take that another step now. All right? So that college degree from a CMU is going to cost them a certain amount of money. How can we reduce that? Okay? Maybe now he can't or she can't at this part, but in the future. What if during high school you took classes that granted college credit? I think we call that dual enrollment. We call that early or middle college. Some people are able to obtain nearly an associate's degree with no cost whatsoever because the public school systems pay for that. How about, so right there, it'd probably decrease tuition by at least 50%. It would decrease room and board by 50% because you're no longer at the university for 4 years. What happens if CMU allowed you to take online classes for a fraction of the cost? You could do that at home in the summer, right? You don't have to be, we talked about being in the four walls of the institution. How about if you were given credit, academic credit for your life experiences or a paid internship, right? Remember what the principle is of learning? We talked about the principle of learning. It doesn't always have to be in the classroom. You may have life experiences where, like we said, an internship you're getting paid for that you could also get credit for. There's so many what ifs. It is possible. We need to remember the main purpose of a post-secondary education, to demonstrate, and I said this before, to demonstrate a person's knowledge, skill, and motivation to become a talented worker and an informed citizen. I think there's multiple ways it could be done. I believe by just addressing some of the issue, I decreased the cost by 50%. I can't decrease the food you're eating, but your board and your tuition I could help you out with.
All right. We got another question here. How do you plan to get your message out to all the voters in the district, especially those who have consistently voted for your opponent?
Town hall number 1, open to all constituents. This was not just open to Democrats. This was open to any and everybody. So I will do what I am doing now, open town halls. I will visit, I will travel, I will discuss. I would love to be invited to Republican meetings. Anybody here that's on at this meeting, please invite me to your party. Please invite me to speak. I'd love to do that. Love to do that. Radio, newspapers, would they assist the candidates? They're supposed to. Radios and newspapers, TVs, they're supposed to assist the voters in understanding the candidates, their principles, their policies, what they stand for, what they don't stand for. It's too early in the campaign to do that. I will personally visit the voters. We are starting, we are willing. I think once people examine who I am, what I believe in, what principles, I will follow, I believe I'd be their best choice, right? The election is vital. Jack Bergman really threatened what I see as vital for all of us, our vote, our democracy, and our freedom. And I am going to share that throughout the 1st District.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. This will be the last question before we start moving on to additional questions that were actually live feed, okay? So what will you do to foster and grow renewed trust in the government?
Tell the truth. Drop mic, that's it. Tell the truth. When you don't trust somebody, why don't you trust them? They lied to you, right? They deceived you. Like I stated earlier, I won't partake in any of that. Tell the truth, be civil and be kind. Concentrate our efforts of solving Americans' problems, not winning elections, and work together. I think that's how we foster, a trust in our government. You don't always have to be right, right? I said that. You always don't have to be right, but you have to be trusted. We've lost the trust. People have lost the trust of our government, some of our government. Being in public health, we lost the trust of public health. We need to regain that trust, and I will participate in that. It's going to be easy for me, folks. Very easy to tell the truth.
All right. So we are getting a lot of questions on the live feed. Unfortunately, we may not be able to get to all of them tonight. We will still try to reach out and respond as much as we can through email. We should have everybody's contact information. We are trying to make sure we get through as much as we can tonight. And we have a little bit of time left here, so let me go ahead and get right to the next one. And again, I appreciate everybody for your questions. Please keep them coming in. We have a question from Michael, and he wants to know, what lessons do you take away from Dana Ferguson's campaign?
Dana Ferguson's campaign, when we started this campaign, we not only reached out to Dana Ferguson, we reached out to 3 of the other people, that have run for the seat. We reached all the way back. I had personal phone calls and meeting with Bart Stupak, who represented, I think, the Democrats and everybody as a Democrat for 9 terms. We've then reached out to the 3 people that have opposed, ran a campaign against Jack Bergman. We learned, I think, from everybody. We asked them exactly what worked out well for you, what worked out not so well. What would you do differently? We discussed how we would run our campaign. We got their feedback. So I will ask, our campaign has asked the previous people. Yes, I think we've learned a lot, from what we have heard. And I guess I just would like to leave it there. But not only Dana Ferguson. Dana Ferguson is, a family friend, right? I think he tried really hard. He had principles. He had the support, and yeah, he didn't get there. So with his help, Lon Johnson's help, Matt Morgan's help, Bart Stupak's help, we're trying. Mm-hmm.
All right. We have another question from Winnie. What COVID decisions did you disagree with, and what was your alternative?
Yeah. Well, let me clarify one other thing, too. I've also disagreed with myself. I made decisions as a COVID medical director that 3 weeks later, a month later, I said, no, I should reverse that. That doesn't make sense. So let me go. When I said I disagree with the governor, that was back in November, about a little over a year ago in November. At that time, they were closing down a lot of the restaurants, right? They were closing businesses down to prevent, the spread of COVID. I looked at the data. I didn't see that. I had the local data, right? I had local data where COVID was coming from, how it was spread. I personally thought that the data, I thought the data was telling me that you could keep businesses open and also try to control COVID at the same time. I think her program is, there's a title to her program. I personally thought there was more damage from that program, right? Everything has unintended consequences. It had more damage to it than the benefits that we're reaping. I shared that locally. I showed that locally, and it got the attention of the state. And we got some phone calls back from the governor's office and from the public health. Stood my ground. It was interesting that maybe 2-3 weeks later, the governor switched her programs. Now that might be wishful thinking, folks. Might be wishful thinking that I had any impact in that. But I have the courage. See my principles? I have the courage to speak up when I think something is of a miss. I also have the courage to admit when I'm wrong. Today, we had a debate among state experts and myself. Does masking in schools really work? Looking at the data. I had a lot to do with that. I had a lot to do with supporting publicly. I supported initially back in August, when the vaccine was not available for children K through 6, I supported a vaccine because I supported masking in schools because the other children had no choice. Now after the vaccine's available, now looking at the data to masking in schools during widespread community transmission, doesn't make any difference. Think about it. Just think about it yourself. If your child is protected in the school by a mask, let's face it here, a cloth mask that's probably loose fitting, doesn't work all the time, with 20, 25 kids in the classroom. Then as soon as they leave the classroom, as soon as they're almost outside, the mask comes out, they play sports, they go to the home, they go out in the community without hardly any mitigation. The data may be saying right now, doesn't make a difference. So yeah, I have these discussions all the time. Did it again this morning when I was preparing for this as my job. And yep, there's people that disagree with me in there. I'm looking at the data. I'm looking at the data. The data is telling me it may not work now. Now, my decision, I think, in August for the support, I think it was the right decision then. It may not be the right decision to mandate K through 6. Why you're not mandating anybody else to wear a mask. You know, that child still can wear a mask if they wish, if they want the extra protection. And can I make my pitch? Vaccine's the way to do it right now. What's going to get us back faster and protect yourself, your community, your friends is going to be vaccinations. And I haven't wavered from that because the data still tells me the same thing.
All right, thank you. This next question was from Joe. Do you understand that carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrogen oxide from human-caused activity is increasing Earth's atmosphere, surface, and oceans to heat up, causing more water vapor in the atmosphere and more frequent violent storms? And what is your plan to address this issue via cap and trade, or a carbon tax, or carbon tax and dividend, or something else?
I'd like to, you know, I'd have to end up saying I have to go for the experts on this, right? I believe that this is where the experts would have a role in this one. Yes, I believe everything that he said. There probably are alternatives. There are different solutions. Just like I said on anything else, define what the problem is. He did it quite well, right? Climate change and these things are happening. That's a problem. Then you have to look at what are the facts. He brought the facts up. Now, what he's talking about, what are the solutions? There's probably multiple ways to apply for this. Yes, I said I support carbon tax. I support cleaner energy sources. Yep, we need to do something about it. Absolutely no question. So it sounds like he knows quite a bit about it, and please be an advocate to make this work.
Okay. Unfortunately, I didn't write down the name of this next question here for some reason. Probably zoomed by me here with all the questions coming in, so I apologize. But how do you feel about SCOTUS's decision today regarding President Biden's vaccine mandate?
The rule of the land. Didn't I say I already support that? I think President Biden, now let's be clear. I believe, and it just came out this afternoon, right? So as we're preparing for the town hall, I'm doing my public health stuff and reading the same thing. When they ended up doing what was they decided against is the emergency treatments or the emergency treatment standards thing about OSHA, the 100 people and 100 employees. They said that's not within the guidance of OSHA, and that's what they got rid of. Biden, I believe, said it's unfortunate, but I respect the decision of the Supreme Court. That's the rule of law. I had questions about that from the start. I got to admit, I had questions about the start. Why just 100? You know, why 100? You know, why not 50? Why not 200? Why not 25? Some of that just didn't make sense to me. But the Supreme Court also decided to uphold the healthcare mandate. The healthcare mandate. They said that is within the power, the decision making of CMS, Center for Medical Services. So half of Biden's plan disappeared for employers that are not in the medical. The other half stayed. America, in general, I would say America doesn't tolerate mandates very well. They just don't tolerate mandates very well, especially from the government. I'm the government. But it seems like Delta, United, some other companies did quite well. You know, Mayo Clinic, I think, fired 700 workers, said you could come back, but you agree not to get vaccinated. We believe, as Mayo Clinic, one of the premier institutions, saying we're putting our patients at risk. Please get vaccinated, otherwise we have to let you go. Very small percentage of the people, very small, 1%. It was their choice. They're not the government. So mandates coming from the employer that's not government. I think that's what Americans want. They don't want the government to mandate.
All right, thank you. This next question is from Mike. What is your position on Granite Loma Space Launch Center? Excuse me.
Probably a good one over here. I don't know enough about it to render an opinion, right? And that's what a congressperson should do. I don't know enough about it to support or not support. I'm sure there's people out there that said, you know, it's an environmental threat. I've heard some, you know, so I just haven't studied enough. It's an environmental threat. Other people say we shouldn't support because it doesn't create that many jobs. But there's a purpose for everything. So do I support? I don't have enough information. Do I not support? I do not have information. For me to render my support, I got to know exactly what I said before. What is the problem? What are the facts? What are the alternatives? Once I study it, and then I would like to talk to the supporters. Why do you support it? Then I'm going to go to the non-supporters. Why don't you support it? Then I would usually go back to both sides again because I've learned more. I learned more. Then eventually, if it is the role of a federal person, I could render an opinion. Sometimes, I said that earlier, the feds need to stay out of local and state business. If this is a federal issue, then, and if my opinion would mean something, then I need to study it. I need to debate, fact find, and then I would render a decision. Don't know enough to render. Sorry, don't know.
All right. Well, thank you for the honesty. This next question is from Carolyn. And you did touch on this a little bit, but I want to make sure that you address this specifically to her question. Roe versus Wade is in peril. What would you do to protect reproductive health care and a woman's right to choose?
Yeah, right now there's two different things, right? One is the Supreme Court decision that we have Roe versus Wade. A congressman has nothing to do with that. You could file, I guess, a support for that, and I already said I support Roe versus Wade. If Roe versus Wade is threatened, then it could be up to Congress. To do like a woman's right. You know, there are bills that are going through Congress right now with that, but they've been paused. Should Congress get involved to guarantee a woman's right to choose? Yeah, that's reasonable. I've read some of the bills that they actually had out, and a lot of it made sense. I support. I mean, it is a right for privacy. It is a right. It's a freedom. I don't think the federal government should be involved in the decisions, everyday decisions. And I know abortion is not an everyday decision, but it's a privacy issue. And I go back to that all the time. It's a privacy issue. It's a healthcare issue.
All right. Thank you. All right. This next question is from Joe. Energy use, heat, AC, electrical use, and transportation make up about 75% of greenhouse gas emissions. Do you have any specific proposals to make those more efficient and create Michigan jobs?
The question is energy or, sorry?
It is about reducing greenhouse gas emissions for heating, AC, electrical supplies, and transportation, and then creating jobs by doing that.
Okay. I'm not sure about the 70%. So, I mean, you know, it might be just a miscommunication over here. I'm not sure about the 70%. But what can Michigan, you know, I'd like to have Michigan to be one of the leaders in the nation. Whatever we could end up doing to address clean energy, right, or clean energy sources, we're in. And I'd leave it up to the business people. The business people are smarter than me on this one, not a congressman, right? The business people should be given a direction that we want to go to clean energy, make it happen. I trust them. I trust them to do that. In terms of like the efficiencies, I'm not a car designer. Is it possible to get a car that had 15 miles a gallon, to get it to 30, to get it to 50, electrical? You know, I'm really excited about some of the stuff that, you know, everybody thinks it's not even possible. Like, you know, cars on hydrogen, right? That's even better, you know, on hydrogen type of a stuff. So whatever is possible. I also would tell people, there's stuff that we think is impossible that will eventually be proven to be possible. There's where I like the American ingenuity, the American, hey, I got an idea. A lot of them will fail, but a lot of them will succeed. It only takes maybe one success out of 100. So I'll leave it up to the experts. I'll leave it up to the experts. As a congressperson, I want to kind of set the goal. We want cleaner energy. Can you do that for us? And what resources do you need to make that work? That's kind of like how the COVID vaccine worked. The federal government, get back, assisted and supported, but didn't tell Pfizer, did not tell Moderna, you know, what to do. The experts did. Let the experts figure this out for us.
Great answer. Thank you. This next one is from Han. Given that we as Democrats have lost the voters of too many people who actually believe they are doing the right thing by voting for Republicans, how do you go about clarifying for voters that GOP policies set families and women up for failure, increasing likelihood of illicit drug use and uses of abortions?
Not sure. I'm sorry. I'm not sure I totally understand this. Is it how to work with Republicans?
The question is, how do you clarify to the Republican voters who genuinely believe they are voting the right way, but the policies themselves are actually harmful?
Yeah. Go back to the problem. Let's go back to how I would address. What is the problem? Let's reframe what the problem is. Once you tell them what the problem is, then ask them, debate with them, you know, discuss with them. Here is the problem. Is the problem any better after that policy? Did the problem get better? Or did another problem occur? Right? Oh, the problem got better by 20%, but this other problem occurred. Well, is that the right thing? Could we have done something different? I call that holding people accountable, but it's also a discussion, right? So when I look like, just like I said, the face mask for the children, it's not the masking all the time. It's not the masking. The problem is, how do we decrease COVID transmission? I initially thought it was by face masking in schools. It may not be so because of human behavior outside of the classroom. So I would say the same thing. Please address the facts. You know, there's no alternative facts over here. Address the facts, address the problem, a civil debate without name calling, without, you know, rhetoric that I talked about. And I would hope that any of us would change our mind based on that discussion. It has to be. That's what Congress, the senators are supposed to do. They're supposed to discuss, debate.
Okay, thank you. President Trump in 2018 said he believed Russian military intelligence over the United States intelligence. If you were a commanding officer in the military, what would you tell your troops under you, and what would you tell Jack Bergman now?
I probably wouldn't tell him that I trust, somebody else's intelligence over. Again, the military is a little different than my approach. Like we said, the military is, a command structure, right? We use the military when diplomacy has failed. So I have a different philosophy than that. I do more collaboration, cooperation, negotiations. The military doesn't use that because usually the military comes in when the diplomacy has failed, right? That's when they come on in. What would I say to my troops? I'd go back. What's our principle? Why are we here? What is the problem? Is our intelligence is always right? I would never tell my troops our intelligence is always right. It's not. But I don't think without firm data, that I would ever dare to end up saying the Russians are more correct than we are. I don't think that's true. You know, I don't think that any facts show that that's true. I think that was devastating. That's wrong. That's demoralizing. And oh, I have nothing good to say about that.
Okay, thank you. This question is from Trevor. And you have touched on this a little bit, but again, this is a little bit more specific, so I'm going to just go ahead and ask it. There's a huge senior population in the 1st District. How do you hope to convert this block of voters who overwhelmingly support the Republican Party and Jack Bergman? Do you plan to let seniors know Bergman wants to privatize Social Security and Medicare?
Democracy depends on voters. Democracy depends on informed voters. The voters have to be informed of how their candidate, what their candidate believes in, what their candidate supports. I would hope, Jack, I will tell people where I stand. That's why I'm doing the town hall. I'll tell you where I will stand. I will tell you what principles. And that's where you have to know the principles more. Because there will be issues that will come up that we never heard about. If you know my principles, you would probably figure out how I'm going to address COVID. So when we talked about privatization of Social Security or Medicare, right? Directed care, from Medicare. You got to know. You got to know the pros of that and the cons. It gets very difficult. So then I would ask you, if it's maybe medical care, maybe talk to your trusted medical provider. Ask them, right? You could ask us politicians, but ask maybe your trusted medical person what they think. I think I know much more probably about healthcare than Jack does. I think I know what works and doesn't work. Why? Because I lived there, I participated there, I listened, I see the problems, day by day. So I have a desire to fix that. The privatization of Social Security, I think that would work. Watch this. I think that would work well for some very bright people that manage their own money. I'm not in that category myself, right? So no, I don't think the privatization of Social Security, because what will happen? If they go bust, who's going to help them then? We're not going to just throw them on the streets. So no, you have to be informed. Democracy depends on informed voter. You got to be informed. Get your sources, right? Watch out when you Dr. Google things. But Dr. Google, the internet does pretty well, but watch out for your sources. Collaborate it with somebody else. Talk to the opponents. Then come to your own conclusion. I don't think the majority do vote Republican. Again, we got to get rid of that. This district is not 100% older people are from Republicans and younger people are from Democrats. It doesn't work that way.
All right, we have a little time left, so I'm going to try to get you to do a little more of a speed round now and keep these answers under 1 minute. Okay, this one actually kind of fits with the voting question here, but again, it's a little different. 1st District is huge. How do you plan to cover every county?
I think doing this, like town halls, meeting virtual. I met with Delta County, last week. I met with Leelanau just 2 days ago. I think you could do it on internet, use your technology. You can do it by phone. And when you visit, you got to travel smart. I can't just go to one county and come back. But if I travel downstate or to the Western UP, I got to do groups. And please, there's 36 counties. You might have to drive 20, 30, 40 miles to come in, to see me in person. Big area, right? Big area.
All right, thank you. What is your position for for taxing unearned income above $1 million annually?
Unearned income, so that would be like taxing income, like a wealth tax almost right now. That's what I'm guessing is like a wealth tax. You didn't earn it, it's not your wage, but it's the money that you either get from selling or owning stocks, that sort. If we need to do, I think most of the rich people, right? I think a lot of the rich people say that they need to pay more. So how it's done, it's always devil's in the details. How it's done, can it be done? How it's done Is it equitable? Is it just? Is it fair? That's what I would be after. But when you listen to a lot of the millionaires saying they think they should pay their fair share, I think a lot of people would agree something needs to change. Our tax laws are so complicated, you know, and they probably, tax laws could be evaded a lot by the rich because they know them very well. So yeah, I think we need tax reform in this country. That's my simple answer. We need tax reform. How we do it, again, I think that has to be up to the public and the experts.
All right. This next question is from Shilpa. What are your plans to solve the child care crisis in the UP in northern Michigan? With 1 minute.
Yeah, what crisis are we talking about? What crisis are we talking about? Child care. I believe we're probably talking affordability. Part of the Build Back Better plan was try to decrease the cost to lower income families, middle income families to support their families, right? That's the child care. There's a child care component to that. Again, the rules, the guidance has changed. I've heard stuff that you should not pay more than 7% of your income at a certain income level for child care, putting limits on certain stuff. So yep, we need to address the affordability of child care. Just like we said, affordability of healthcare, education, child care is right up there. Top issues.
All right. Next question is from Joanne. Do you believe redistricting maps are fair or need further improvements?
In Michigan. So if they say, is Michigan's redistricting is fair? There's 13 people that were supposed to represent, you know, independently. I know there's Republicans and Democrats and independents. They were supposed to represent it by guidelines given to them by the state. Make this fair. Make it equitable. They were given guidance. I hope they did a very good job. And I think it's better than what we've had, much better than what we had. You know, for my district, I would just say, I like the principles. I read what they're supposed to follow. I hope they did it well. I only followed my first district. The first district, you know, we had to go farther south for population. So I'm pleased. I'm pleased for the first district, yes.
All right.
Did it help me? I don't know. But see, I'm pleased on the fairness.
This next question is from Trevor. What is your position on income equality, and what do you propose to reduce the gap between the lowest income and the top 1% to the levels we saw in the 1950s? Or do you support that?
I think it's gotten out of control. When a CEO, like say healthcare, right, a big insurance company can make $100 million versus the janitor inside that, you know, healthcare place is making $30,000 and qualifies for federal assistance, right? Because they don't even make, there's something wrong with that. I personally do not think anybody is worth that amount of money, including professional athletes. But you know, we're paying for this now. I think the income inequality, but I also believe if you work harder, you should get paid more, right? If you spend more time educating yourself, delaying the rewards, you should get paid more. I'm not sure anybody needs $100 million a year. And then when people end up saying, well, then they won't do the work. That is absolutely not true. It wasn't true during the 1950s and 60s, where the income inequality from the highest to the lowest was nowhere near the 1,000-fold it is now. No. And should it be a federal issue? I don't think so. It should be a sense of justice and kindness of the business owners themselves.
All right. Next question. Do you feel that anyone has the right to medical procedures, 1, done to themselves, or 2, not done to themselves on their own individual body? In other words, does the person and individual have the ultimate decision-saying power?
No. If somebody came to me as a doctor and said, please take this off. Please, I don't want my appendix. Okay, I'll do that. I think you're going to an expert. An expert is a medical person that's going to say, why do you want that done? Oh, I'm going to Antarctica. And if I have a problem with my appendix down there, that could be a disaster and I could die. Now it makes sense. But no, you're going to an expert. The expert doesn't have to agree with you as a patient. And you don't have to agree with the expert. That's the freedom of the healthcare over here. You pick your provider. Your provider then gives you advice. Your provider with discussions. It's the same thing as a diplomat now or of a congressperson. You have a discussion. You go back and forth. You share each other's facts. I am not going to be told to do something that I think might harm you. I won't do that. Go to another provider.
Okay. They did declare not self-harm in that question. I skipped that part.
Well, they may think it's not self-harming, but how about if I do? I have my own opinions too. Okay. Now, I think there might be a difference of opinion. That won't harm me.
Okay. Thank you for that answer. Next question. Do you see a need for a virtual component to all government meetings during the pandemic?
I'm wondering if that's directed to the Michigan law that just came out. Now, that's a state law. Michigan actually said open meeting laws, you have to be in personal attendance to do that. You can't do it virtually anymore. That was a state's decision. As a federal person, I have no decision on that. That's a state issue. So again, federal government should stay where the federal government is, not at local level or state level. Do I support meetings remotely? Yes. Did I support them even after the pandemic? Yes. Does it hinder? Does it hinder discussion? I don't think so. Maybe our Congress people should be able to vote. Congress, you have to be in person to vote. I don't know why a Congress person, I can stay in the district and work from Washington, do my duties in Washington on the internet. I could participate that way.
All right. I'm going to try to get through a few more questions here, and then we're going to have to call it for the night. But thank you again, everybody, so much for the great questions. Next question up is, do you support removing the marriage penalty for people on SSI or Ssdi disability? And new legislation is in the works to remove it. So do you support that?
Yeah. Again, it gets down, like I said before, I don't know enough about that. They made it sound like there's a penalty. If there's a penalty, it sounds bad. It sounds like I should support, yeah, get rid of the penalty. I don't know the details again. Sorry, can't answer that one either.
All right.
But it sounds like if you're talking about a penalty, it shouldn't be there. But again, I need to have the facts and review it and then make my decision for support or not support.
Okay. And this one's an easy one, I think. Are you interested in invitations for local meetings in homes?
In homes. Yeah. You got to remember now, running for Congress in 25,000 square miles, 36 counties, I can't spend hours with 2 or 3 people. If you have a meeting in the home, like I just did that with Leelanau, they had like 10 people. Well, that was easy. I didn't have to travel there. They asked just for question and answers. Nothing prepared, Dr. Bob, just question and answers. I'm in. What time? Yeah, I'll do that.
All right. Next question.
Invite a lot of people, though. Invite a lot of people to your house.
Let's see. What do you say when your opponent calls you a socialist or a Marxist? Which we know has already happened. So.
Yeah, don't reply. It's name calling. Right? If somebody name calls, do you reply back to a bully? Right? How do you address that? I think sometimes what hurts bullies is ignoring it. I'd like to ignore it, but I gotta admit, what is the issue? I still look when I get called a name. What's the issue? Am I called a socialist or a communist because I believe in universal health care? I'm proud of it. Then I'm proud of it. Talk about issues. I will respond to issues. I will not respond to name calling.
Okay. Next question, and these are the last 2 questions for the night. And again, we appreciate everybody. Please submit through the form if you want us to continue to answer questions for you. We really appreciate your time being on here tonight. Next question is, what is your stand on the Congressional filibuster?
I'm not sure getting rid of it's the way to do it. The filibuster was supposed to protect, it was like, again, I don't know all the history either, but it's not a constitutional right, it's a Senate rule. It started like in 1807 for a really interesting reason. But will the filibuster solve the problems in the United States? If we end up get rid of the filibuster to pass the voting rights, did we solve the issue? Or did we continue the divide 50-50 and make it more problematic? We only won because we switched the rules. I'm not sure. America has to come together. Seems to me get rid of the filibuster does not solve that issue. I do understand people say that's our only way forward. It is not our only way forward. Let's talk, let's debate, let's talk to the Republicans and the Democrats. What is the best area for voter rights? What is good for voter security? I'm not sure about getting rid of the filibuster. No.
Okay. Last question. I think it's good to end on this one. Will you invite Bergman to a live debate?
I invite Jack Bergman to a live debate today, tomorrow, next week, anytime, any place, anywhere. Please accept. Jack, I know you're here. I know you're listening to me. Accept the invitation for a debate. Now, let the public understand how you and I view things. And maybe let's invite the experts. If our debate is going to be on line 5, let's bring the experts in. I'd be glad to.
All right. Well, there we go. That is fantastic. Thank you so much for your time.
Did Jack reply back on the chat? Did he agree?
I don't see a reply from Jack, but I do see some people cheering and saying, come on, Jack. So hopefully he'll respond and we'll get him to actually say yes.
It's important for voters, right? It's important for voters. Not for Jack and myself. It's important for voters to know. So maybe that's a great place to end the discussion.
I think it is. That was great. Thank you so much. I want to just touch base, one more time and ask for your support. If you are excited about Dr. Bob like I am, to please go to his website, votedrbob.com. Please donate. Please sign up to volunteer. We have a fellowship program. If you really want to get engaged and involved, we really appreciate your support. And thank you so much for participating tonight. And please keep an eye out for future events. We will be going around the state, well, the district, not the whole state, and going county to county, trying to talk to voters every single place that we can. So again, thank you so much. That's votedrbob.com, and have a great evening.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you.